It was a quiet golden afternoon on Route 66, the kind where the sun kissed the road and the air smelled of gasoline, dust, and coffee. Inside a small, worn-out diner stood Emily Carter, a 22-year-old waitress with tired eyes, but a heart that still believed in goodness. She moved table to table, smiling at strangers, hiding her exhaustion behind gentle kindness. Life hadn't given her much, but she gave what she could. A smile, a warm cup of coffee, and respect. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for what's right, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that humanity still exists in every corner of the world. Emily worked day and night to pay for her father's treatment. The locals adored her, especially a group of men most people feared, the Hells Angels. They came often, parking their roaring Harleys outside the diner, their presence intimidating everyone except Emily. She treated them with the same kindness she showed anyone else. And for that, they respected her deeply. She was family to them, the kind of person who saw the good in people others had long given up on. That day, as Emily served coffee to one of the bikers, the sound of engines was replaced by the screech of expensive tires. A convoy of black SUVs stopped outside. Laughter echoed as a group of rich teenagers walked in, loud, arrogant, full of ego. They were the kind who had never been told no. Leading them was Tyler Hayes, the son of one of the state's wealthiest businessmen. Handsome, spoiled, and used to treating people like servants. They sat down, snapping fingers to call Emily like she was invisible. She smiled, took their order politely, and went about her work. The bikers at the counter watched quietly. They had seen this type before, kids who thought money bought respect. Emily came back with their food, balancing plates in both hands. As she placed Tyler's burger in front of him, he made a face of disgust and said, "This looks like garbage." His friends laughed. Emily apologized softly, offering to replace it. But Tyler, irritated and wanting to show off in front of his group, leaned back in his chair, smirked, and spit on her apron. The diner went dead silent. Even the jukebox froze midong. Emily stood still, her hands trembling slightly as she wiped the spit from her apron. She didn't shout, didn't cry. She just whispered, "I'm sorry, sir," her voice breaking. Her dignity stayed intact, but everyone could feel the humiliation burning in her eyes. At the counter, the 50 Hells Angels exchanged glances. Their leader, Rick Bear Lawson, a massive man with gray in his beard and thunder in his eyes, stood up slowly. The sound of his chair scraping the floor felt heavier than any words. One by one, every biker followed. The floor trembled under their boots. They walked toward Tyler's table. Calm, steady, silent. Tyler's confidence began to fade as the shadow of Bear loomed over him. Bear didn't shout. He just said, "You think money makes you better than her? That girl works harder in one day than you've ever worked in your life." Tyler laughed nervously, but his voice shook. Bear leaned closer and said, "You just disrespected someone we respect. You're going to make this right." Outside, 50 Harleys started rumbling. The sound rolled through the air like thunder. Tyler and his friends were led outside, surrounded by the bikers. No one touched them, but the message was clear. Bear told them they would come back the next morning, not as customers, but as workers. "You'll clean, serve, and learn what respect means," he said. And that's exactly what happened. For the next week, Tyler and his friends cleaned tables, washed dishes, took orders, and worked side by side with Emily. At first, he was angry, embarrassed, even arrogant. But as days passed, he began to see the world through Emily's eyes. How she smiled even when she was tired. How she treated everyone with respect. How her kindness never depended on who she was serving. One night after closing, Tyler found Emily sitting outside on the steps looking up at the stars. He sat beside her quietly. For the first time, he said, "I'm sorry. It wasn't forced. It came from a place of guilt, humility, and realization." The next morning, he didn't come empty-handed. He brought an envelope. Inside was a check large enough to pay off Emily's father's medical bills completely. He said softly, "This doesn't erase what I did, but maybe it can help a little." Emily looked at him, tears welling up, and for a moment both of them just smiled. The bikers watched from a distance, proud. They'd seen plenty of fights in their lives, but what they witnessed that week, a boy's heart changing, was something far rarer. Word spread through town about the rich kid who disrespected a waitress and how 50 Hell's Angels made him learn respect the hard way. Months later, Tyler kept visiting the diner, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He started volunteering at a youth shelter, helping kids who came from nothing. Maybe because he'd finally learned what something truly meant. As for Emily, she eventually opened her own cafe called Second Chances Cafe, a place dedicated to people who wanted to start over. On the wall hung a photograph, her standing between the Hell's Angels. Smiling below it in bold letters, a quote read, "Respect costs nothing, but it can change everything." If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us spread stories that remind people that compassion and respect still matter. And before this story ends, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Emily's place? Would you have stayed silent, or stood tall like she did with quiet dignity that changed someone's life forever? Because sometimes it doesn't take power or wealth to change the world. It just takes one person brave enough to stay.